smoking green. No block, no drag, just pure machine. Come show us your truck, we'll make it pristine. We just wanna know, can your diesel uphold? Bring something dirty, we'll turn it to gold. It's like this, we clean up your flow. Now your engine is gliding. It's
I think that worked. Okay, so we are live. Hopefully you haven't been holding your breath since the last time we were live, because you would be very dead. It's been a long time and a lot's been going on, some exciting stuff at DPF Guys. And probably one of the things that I am most excited about is expanding our team. And if any of you have called or texted us in the last couple of months, you've probably had the pleasure of talking to Harper, who's right here. And she actually works remotely from a beautiful cabin in the woods up in Wisconsin, but is talking to all of our customers and answering questions and everything else. So what I wanted to do is have Harper join me, and I just said, come up with some of the questions that you've been asked, and I'll do my best to answer them. And I think she said she's got 5 of them for me. So, you know, let's give this a try. What do you got, Harper?
All right. So a couple of questions that have come in last couple of weeks. We'll start with the first one. What are the most common emissions-related failures you're seeing right now on medium-duty and heavy-duty work trucks, and what usually causes them?
All right. So, you know, and I think it's important to kind of look at cause and symptom. So we clean 1,500, 2,000 diesel particulate filters a year at DPF Guys, and actual emissions failures are sort of rare, believe it or not. And we do see filters that are cracked or soaked with oil or fuel or coolant, but almost every single failure is caused by something in the engine going wrong first, or the emission system failure is only a symptom of a problem, something happening somewhere else, meaning upstream in the engine. So if you want to avoid DPF problems, there's a few preventative things. Now, again, you're going to always have something go wrong, a sensor go out or a DEF pump fail or whatever it might be. But I do recommend running a good fuel additive like Clean Air Fleet, which is spinning over my shoulder right here. If you have an APU, an auxiliary power unit, use it. If you don't have one, consider getting an APU. And the APU, or the auxiliary power unit, is what allows you to not have to idle your main and thirsty engine when you want to be warm or cool in your truck, and run your electronics and microwave and air fryer and Netflix and everything else while you're done driving at night. People often ask me, let's say, well, should I turn my truck off at night when I'm at the truck stop? And, you know, while that might be better for your fuel consumption and better for your engine and your emission system and everything else, your truck is your house. And so I don't want you to be uncomfortable. You know, I want you to be cool and warm and that sort of stuff, because if you don't get a good night's sleep and you're sleepy on the road, you're not safe for yourself or anybody else. So idle your truck if you have to, not a big deal. But if you do have an APU, that is a big improvement. I do see a lot of trucks come in with APUs and they simply say, it's busted. My APU doesn't work, so I just idle. And, you know, I recommend those people spend the money to get your APU working, because, you know, even if it costs you a few $100, it'll probably pay for itself in a month or two. And of course, will help you with maintenance as well. Big thing is keep up with your maintenance, the basic stuff. Make sure your air filter isn't all full of, you know, mouse nests and what have you. Keep your fuel filter clean, because if you're starving your engine of fuel or air, your engine will not run as efficiently. And not only will you not get as good fuel economy, not as much power, when your engine doesn't burn the diesel properly, it produces more soot, will then plug up your DPF, and you have to come see me more often than you should. Not that I don't want you to come see me, but I'd rather have you see me less than, you know, come see me as little as possible, I guess is kind of my rule of thumb. Another overlooked maintenance item that I see a lot is your overhead valve adjustment. And that's something that people often forget about, or they get a truck used with 400,000 or 500,000 miles on it, which is really the interval where you want to get your overhead valve adjustments done every 500,000 miles, every couple of years. And if you forget to do it, those valves will get sticky. They won't open as much as they should, or they're open too much, whatever it might be. And your fuel does not combust as well, and that will produce additional soot. Will also mean that you will slowly lose power. You will slowly reduce your fuel economy. And if it gets really bad and your compression drops really, really low, you can actually have the fuel kind of dumping into the cylinder, not burning properly, and going downstream and melting or cracking your DPF system. When it comes to DPF issues, a little maintenance goes a long way. So how's that for number one?
That's an awesome answer.
So remember that next time somebody calls, you can just tell them that.
Yeah, I'll tell them the whole spiel.
So what else you got?
All right, question number 2. Let's see. From your perspective, what maintenance habits make the biggest difference in keeping emission systems reliable on heavy-duty trucks? This is kind of similar to the first question.
Well, let's see here. I guess all the things I just talked about. Fuel filters, oil filters, make sure that you're maintaining that stuff. Keep your overhead valve adjustment up to date every 500,000 miles, every couple of years, every 2 years. Basically, the rule of thumb is if you can't remember the last time you've had your overhead done, it's probably time to do an overhead. Have an APU, get an APU. If you have an APU that's not working, get an estimate on getting it working, because that'll be some of the best money you ever spent. High quality oil, high quality engine oils is really helpful. And a lot of people tell me they have great luck with the AMSOIL full synthetic, but whatever you use, don't skimp on the motor oil. What happens is the motor oil actually has to burn. It actually has to kind of work its way around the rings and the pistons and things like that, so that it can lubricate that. So a little tiny amount of that oil does burn every time, and the more it breaks down, the more of it actually seeps through and actually burns. And oils have metals in them as kind of part of the lubricating properties. And when those metals burn, they produce ash. The ash builds up in the DPF, which means you have to come see me sooner than you may want to. So another thing I recommend is pulling an oil sample and having the sample professionally analyzed and read once or twice a year. Your truck's motor oil is kind of like its blood, and a sample can tell you so many things about your truck that you may or may not want to know, but it's better to find out that something might be going sideways ahead of time, so you can actually do something about it versus waiting until something goes wrong. Which reminds me, I need to make an appointment to go see my doctor and see how bad my cholesterol might be. But I do love cheese. But all right, so that's 2, not bad. I feel pretty good so far.
All right, next question. How long should a truck be driven to complete a proper regen, and what happens if it keeps getting interrupted?
That is a good question. So many of the people we work with are over the road, so this really kind of is not an issue, but for our friends with the Freightliner M2s, International 4300s, the box trucks, this often comes up. So you're probably asking about the rolling or passive regen versus the forced or parked regen. An over-the-road truck really shouldn't require a parked or forced regen unless the DPF is really at the point where you really need to schedule a visit, with us or somebody like us to get it cleaned. Simply driving and allowing the truck to trigger a passive regen while you're cruising at highway speeds is usually all a healthy truck needs. And it all kind of varies, but normally a rolling or passive regen will take 20 to 30 minutes to run. And honestly, some drivers may not even notice it's happening. Some trucks are a little more obvious, some aren't. Some have a light on the dash that comes on. But let's say, for instance, you're cruising on the highway and it's getting to the beat, your time is running out, time to go to the truck stop and, get something to eat, take a shower, and kind of call it a night. And if you pull into the truck stop while your truck's in the middle of a rolling regeneration, You can either keep the truck running for a few minutes and just kind of, wrap up your paperwork and pick up your candy bar wrappers and coffee cups or whatever you got rolling around in your cab and wait for it to finish, or just shut down and, call it a night, because it'll just pick back up when you get on the highway. So it's not a big deal. So figure 20, 30 minutes for a passive regen, not a big deal to interrupt one. It'll pick up when you start over again. However, if you never allow a passive regen to finish, soot will build up to the point where you will need to run a forced or parked regen, and you want to avoid that if you can. In situations where a truck is used for local deliveries, or maybe you drive a school bus or a fire truck, or what is another one we see? Companies that do blown insulation. They might only, drive that truck a few miles across town to blow insulation into someone's attic, and then the truck idles all day where they're blowing in the insulation. It sounds really specific, but I've seen it. And so you never, really get up to highway speeds or extended periods of time, and you can never finish a complete passive regen, or it might not even go into a passive regen. And we're right by the Atlanta airport. So they have a lot of diesel vehicles on the tarmac, and they do need to leave them running all day in case they have to get out of the way of a plane. In that, so those trucks never really get hot enough to do a full, passive or rolling regen. So if that's the case, again, if you've got something like a school bus where you're doing, never get up to really highway speeds, you're stopping and going, something that does a lot of idling but doesn't get up to highway speed, fire engine, bus, like I said, insulation blowing truck, some tow trucks, that sort of stuff. Then maybe you want to do a parked regen, using a computer once or twice a week. That may be necessary, but usually the ECM, or the engine control module, is able to take care of things without you intervening too much. If anybody has a question, of course, just call and ask Harper. She can help you out with that.
Yes, I can. All right. You ready for the next question?
I think so. Yeah, let's see what happens.
All right. Okay. What early warning signs should a driver pay attention to before an emissions issue turns into a breakdown?
All right. Now, if you had a crystal ball, you could just look in there and say, what's going to break on my truck this week? But that has not been invented yet. So things like sensor failures, a mouse chewing through wires in your harness, or a DEF pump blowing up and no longer pumping, there's really not much you can look for there or even do preventatively. However, there are things a driver can watch for, and they're actually pretty simple when you think about them. The number one is the truck asking for a parked regen. If the truck is running normally, it should really never ask for a parked regen. Again, if you're back to the original question, if you run a school bus, or you're kind of putting around town, never getting up to speed, then yes, it may. But if you're an over-the-road driver, hammer down across the highway, if it's your truck's asking for a parked regen, it's just telling you that the DPF is getting to the point where it's time to take the trash out. And really the parked regen is designed just to get you going well enough to get home and get to a shop. And if you run a parked regen, you're gonna have to run another one in 2 weeks, and then run another one in a week, and then pretty soon the parked regen's not going to work anymore, and you'll be being pulled by a tow truck, and that's really a nuisance. I know, scan tools like the OTR system, the OTR people are great guys, but I have to admit that it makes it way too easy to fire off parked regens over and over and over again. And people kind of think that the parked regen magically empties the DPF, but it really is just burning off a layer of soot and leaves behind ash. And if you keep running regens on your truck, it'll not only waste your fuel, it may also crack your DPF or melt it, and end up getting to the point where the regen simply no longer works. And guess what? Your truck will get derated under 5 miles per hour, and you're stuck with a tow bill and missed pickups, and dispatch is mad at you. Another thing you can do is just kind of watch things like your fuel economy. You'd be amazed at watching how many miles per gallon you get. Let's say you're getting 8, 8.1, 8.2, and it starts to drop and drop and drop, that can really tell you that there's something going on. And can you tell you that it might be time to something, look at something. Kind of rule of thumb, get your DPF cleaned every 250,000 miles or so, and your problems will be almost zero, barring, a sensor getting crazy or a mouse thinking your harness wires are tasty. And if you want to go even further between DPF cleanings, 500,000 miles or more, which I have seen, run the Clean Air Fleet additive, shameless plug, and have an APU. And it's, I thought about this as I was giving these answers. It might seem funny that like all of my little health tips for your truck and maintenance tips are kind of based on making people need to come in and see me and give me their hard-earned cash less frequently and not more. But honestly, our goal as a company is to keep your truck on the road and out of our shop as much as possible. I always tell people I want to see you again, just not too soon. How's that for an answer?
I like that answer.
Good.
I think that might be my favorite one.
That's all that matters. As long as you're happy, I'm happy.
Yeah, that was a good one. All right. This one's a hard one.
Okay.
So prepare. How do you
hold on a second. Let me drink some chicken broth.
Chicken broth? That's what's in the cup?
Oh, that's really it is this time. It might be a margarita next time, but I won't tell.
Next
What's your next one?
Margaritas. How do you stop chasing sensor codes, and what is the fix?
Man, yeah, it's like, and you told me these questions would be easy. So how do I say this diplomatically? Anybody can read a code, just like anybody can read a thermometer to know if you have a fever, but the code and the fever is only a symptom of the actual problem. So it's not just the code, it's what does the code mean, what may be causing that code, and also understand that, different diagnostics tools will report different codes differently. So the code is just really the first step in the solution. And it's also important to remember that there's some issues that don't even cause a code in the first place. But my number one recommendation when it comes to codes, and I can't make this point strong enough, is do not clear your codes before you bring your truck to a shop. Because some people will think like, well, it's the code that's making my truck not run right. If I clear the code, my truck will run right. And that's kind of like, well, I've got a fever, so I'm just going to break the thermometer so I don't have a fever anymore. You want to leave those codes in there. As trucks have become more and more sophisticated and systematized, computerized, there's all of these, different things working together, ECMs and ACMs and all those things. And if you just go in and clear your codes, the mechanic that you bring the truck to is going to be flying blind. So leave the codes there so that the doctor working on your truck has something to work off of. Leave the codes active or inactive so the mechanic can see the codes first of all. How many times the code was triggered? Was it triggered once? Was it triggered 13 times? How long that code has been active? You might have a code that's been active for a day. Maybe it's been active for 6 months. And sometimes what happens is when there's something wrong, it might not be enough to cause a problem right away, but like for instance, you have an issue where you have a NOx sensor code. It won't be enough to shut your truck down, but it'll be something that will prevent your truck from doing something else. And then the fact that it's not doing that something else will cause the truck to kick your butt at some point in the future. So again, this is why the OTR tool can be a real problem. And no offense to the OTR guys, because they are awesome, because it makes it really tempting to go in and go, boop, clear codes. And then you call the mechanic and he's like, everything's been cleared. I don't even know what to do. So, the best thing to do is make a note of the codes. And we actually have an email address, codes, spelled code, CODES, at dpfguys.com. Believe it or not, you can actually take a picture of your codes, email them to that, or text them to our main number, 404-999-1361. I think that's our main number. And between the team at DPF Guys, with Harper's help, we can generally get to the bottom of it and at least help you narrow things down. My goal is, again, I can't magically fix a truck from across the country over the phone or via text, right? I wish I could. But the goal is to just give you enough information so that you're educated. When you go to a shop, you can help the mechanic, get to the bottom of your issue more quickly and more effectively. And again, the more quickly you do that, the faster you're back in the road, the faster your wheels are turning, and you are back to doing your job and earning money, because we all need to do that.
Yes, we do. I like when customers send me codes. I enjoy that.
I'm like, what am I? Somebody, I'm like, where are they? Oh, they're up in the mountains of Oklahoma. I'm like, how the hell am I supposed to help? I'm like, okay, I guess we'll just take a crack at it and see what happens. And
it's nice helping people, and it's always a learning experience too.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Tell me about it too. Last question.
Okay.
Might have already touched on this a little bit, but we'll just do it again. If I don't idle much, but I do a lot of short runs, is that enough to plug a DPF?
So this is a good one. So the deal is, not idling will help, obviously, and doing a bunch of short runs. It's not that the short run is necessarily bad. It just means that you never exercised the truck hard enough to get it to, burn off the soot. So long runs, short runs doesn't really make a whole lot of difference with how much soot your engine produces. So short runs will not necessarily plug things up more, but short runs and a lot of stop and go will often prevent your engine from getting hot enough, long enough to properly complete a regen to burn off the soot that does build up. So, for example, if you're using the truck where, let's say it's a warehouse truck, you pick up in one city and then you drive 20, 30 minutes to the next city. And when you get to the next city, you're kind of putting around, stop and go. But then after that, you head back home or wherever you go, 20, 30 miles. That 20, 30 miles that you drive will be enough to do the regen and burn off the soot that build up. But, let's say you work for a beer distributor, something like that, where you go to work and the truck is there, they load it up, and in all of your deliveries are like a milk run around your city, dropping off product, multiple customers. I'm from Wisconsin, and due to the volume of bars in Wisconsin, there's a lot of stopping and going. In Georgia, sad for me, there's not as many bars, but same thing happens. So you pick up, fill up your truck, and you're like, you go a block here, then another block, and then you just kind of putt back to the warehouse. Maybe the truck never got exercised enough to really burn off that soot. In that situation, that might be a situation where you do want to have a tool, a laptop like a J Pro or similar. Ask me about J Pro. We're specialized in J Pro, and you might want to run a forced regen once a week to clear off any of the built up soot in the DPF that would normally be burned off when you would fly down the highway for 30 minutes or more. And again, it could be something you kind of do just, on Fridays. They regen the truck so it's ready for the next week. But if you do a lot of short runs, just kind of pay attention to what the truck is doing, and then you can talk to us about what we'd actually recommend. And of course, running a good fuel additive such as Clean Air Fleet by our friends at the Clean Air Fleet Company. You can look them up by going to cleanairfleet.com, and we do stock it in Atlanta. Will help that tremendously as well, because if you have a good additive that is actually causing the fuel to burn more completely, you will produce less soot and have less forced regens, and will have to come see me and talk to Harper right here. I don't know. My camera's backwards, but so that's it. That's I don't know if anybody is actually watching this thing live, right? Oh my goodness, we actually got we have a couple of questions here. Do you see those, Harper?
Yeah. Here, where can I see?
Uh,
Where can I see?
Oh, what do we? Oh, there's wild fruits. Hang on a second here. Let me. Is that on YouTube?
Pull it up. Let's see the question.
Let's see. Let's show these things on the stream. Okay, so let's see. Let's do this. Here we could do. So our friend from YouTube says it's an issue with pressure sensor, glow plugs, or AdBlue, which is the DEF. And I was going to say, I bet he's from the UK because that is what our British friends call DEF. They call it AdBlue.
I like that more. I like that. I think that's better than DEF. It's a little more fun.
AdBlue, the bangers and mash and AdBlue, and in boots and lifts and I won't say what they call cigarettes, but and then of course they think you're pretty amazingly. That's fantastic. So thank you for if you ever want to get a hold of Harper, or I wish you were here because we could help you with your mobile mechanic business. And he says DPFs are easy to fix, and actually there's a lot going on, but when you start to understand the emission system, it actually is not that tricky. And that's our goal, is to really help you get a better feel for your DPF system. It's not scary. I know people kind of poo-poo me. They're like, oh, I just love to delete my DPF and that sort of stuff. And I'm like, I know, I'm not going to argue with you. But the problem is that when people will sometimes, resort to like, I'm so frustrated, I want to delete this thing, they just don't realize that what's causing that problem is actually something in the engine. And what concerns me about the people that immediately go to a delete is they might be having a catastrophic failure happening upstream, and they pay someone a bunch of money to delete the DPF, and their engine is still failing. And I've seen this, probably, 2 or 3 weeks don't go by where someone doesn't come in and say, I brought my truck to a mechanic and he just told me to delete my DPF, and then my engine failed several weeks later. And maybe the DPF delete had something to do with it, but more likely the issue was he was having an engine failure that was happening in the first place. And so now he has the expense of the delete and the other issues with that. Plus he still has to get his engine rebuilt. So,
Yep.
We want to make sure that you're just, you're making good decisions as much as possible. We got a good one here. We got Ryan, also from YouTube. Really appreciate it. If a DPF is level 3, is possible to run until it hits 0. Okay, cool. So this is awesome. I really am so glad that these questions are coming in. So Harper, this is a really good one. So if a DPF is level 3, which means it's really plugged up, is it possible to keep running regen until it hits 0 or needs to be replaced? So again, back when I was saying about anybody, Harper, do you have a kitchen garbage can that
Yeah.
will sometimes get full, and you tell your husband to empty it, and what does he do? He takes his big fat foot and just crushes everything down, more or less.
Yeah.
So what that's like doing a regen. Basically, it's the garbage can is full and it's got, milk cartons and papers and things like that and Amazon packages, and so you go and you crush it down, and that'll definitely give you more room, but it's still in there, right? And there comes a point where you just simply can't crush it anymore. You got to take it out. So level 3 would mean that you're probably due for a DPF cleaning. I wouldn't think at all that you'd have to replace the DPF unless it's physically cracked. And this is the thing that I tell people to watch out for when it comes to the really pounding and regen at a truck, is because you're like, it's at level 3. Oh, I got it down to level 2. I'm going to regen it again, and you keep hitting that DPF with that 1200 degree exhaust. You could potentially damage the DPF. So if you have a truck that's at a level 3 and a regen doesn't seem to be pushing it down very long, and they can't remember the last time they had their DPF cleaned, or maybe it's been 200,000 miles or so, it's probably just time to get it clean. Now, there's some other stuff that we'll talk in a future episode about Freightliner M2s and Cummins 6.7s that can really, those engines can run so dirty that they can literally get a DPF plugged up in a matter of a few hundred miles. But that's an injector issue, which is another conversation. But if you have a truck that is, let's say it's got 300, 400,000 miles on it, and it's at level 3, and you run the regen on it, goes on a little bit, but then comes right back, goes on a little bit, comes right back. You don't need a new DPF. You just need to get the DPF cleaned. And at that point, as long as the truck is still running the same way and the engine is still healthy, and maybe you're running a clean air fleet additive over here, you can't see it. There's no reason you shouldn't be able to go another 300,000-400,000 miles. So, and of course, if you have any questions about that, Ryan, my friend from YouTube, feel free to drop us a text or a call at 404-999-1361. In fact, do I have this right here? I might have this right. I don't even know. Oh, where is it? This? Well, I don't even know. I had a thing that I could pop it up. But
for the phone number?
There, like this.
Oh,
text or call.
Yeah, send a text.
Screenshot that, baby. Anyway, so I tell you what, this was and if anybody has any other questions, please feel free to leave them down below in the doodly-doo wherever you're watching this. I think this is on Facebook and YouTube and LinkedIn and God knows where else. So all of you that tuned in, Harper, I know you were nervous about doing this. You did a wonderful job. And I definitely look forward to doing this again here. And I don't know. What do you think? Do you think that was good? You can call it, before we wear out our welcome with anybody here, we should probably just let them get out of here and we can.
It was great. Great questions. Great learning opportunity for me as I'm new in the diesel space. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Cool. And like I said, yeah, and if anybody if you just want to shoot a question to us via text or via the comments here or whatever it is, please do so because, we'll add it to an upcoming episode here. We're hoping to do these a little more regularly. Follow us on TikTok. If you're not following us, of course, subscribe to the YouTube channel because it means a bunch to me because I just, what do I say? I just want to be loved. It's not too much to ask. I just want to be loved.
Because I be loved too. But yeah,
awesome.
I'm hoping anyone on here have any more questions, text us at 404-999-1361 because I'll record them for our next episode.
Awesome. Tell you what, Harper, thanks for joining. Stay warm up there in Wisconsin, and tomorrow's another day. It's Wednesday, actual Wednesday.
Actually, Wednesday tomorrow.
See you later, everybody.
Can we high five through here?
Can I high five? What do I do? There we go. Oh, there. High five. Awesome.
Sounds good.
Haze, just clear skies ahead with DPF Guys. Your exhaust game's on tread. We got the tools, the skills, the might to get your truck rolling clean into the night. Throttle up, feel that clean airflow. Our service so slick, your ride seals the show. DPF Guys, we got your fit so fine. Hit the road with confidence. Now the world's your shrine. Bring in that rig, let's